Russell Westbench? Is that what we're talking about?
Actually, I think I am going to be fair because I'm equally, as I always say, I'm try to be fair as I can. You know what I'm saying? And I'm rough on Russell, so I will be fair and say from what I've seen, and you heard me say it a little bit. Man, he kind of like when Buns decided to be a preacher in Belly. Like he turned the corner. Like he's you know remember when DMX had the glasses on and the suit, and you was
I've
like,
heard a good
oh,
Kelly reference in a minute.
Buns is a good man. Russell Westbrook wants to be a good basketball player, and he has finally accepted the role that his team needs him. Not just we want you to be there so we can point at you and laugh, but this is the role we need you to play. And it's enjoyable to watch him do that, and it's even more enjoyable to watch the team win whilst he does that. They still have some improvement to go. I'm not saying they're going to win an NBA championship, but I'm not going to be the guy that yelled, "You need to start coming off the bench." And then when you start coming off the bench, laugh at you for being a person that comes off the bench that used to start. I'm not gonna be that dude. I'm not. That'd be a horrible thing to do. So I'm not gonna be that dude. But I will say I like to see it. And you know what? If he accepts this role, he's got enough time that he could win Six Man of the Year. He could really do that. That's a real
Yeah.
possibility.
To me though, it comes to what was broken, because I don't think it was Russ coming off the bench. I think it's
Pride.
just what in his game maybe that he could identify. I mean, I wish we could get him on the show to talk about it, but what was broken in his game to where now you're starting to see some success? Kind of look like the Russ of old. I mean, he's still. He's never been a great shooter. So when people post the stuff of him missing shots, and that's been Russ's whole career, he's never been a deadly
You
shooter.
you played basketball, Sterling. The most important thing to have in basketball is confidence. Correct?
Yeah,
Would you agree? Because
yeah.
okay, so
Talent goes a
look,
long way too.
well, no. But you've seen people with a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah, yeah,
talent but no
yeah.
confidence, and you're like, that nigga's buns, or you know what I'm saying? He
Right.
sucks. But why? Because he doesn't believe he can be good. And you've seen a guy that's not really that good, and but his confidence level is so high that he plays better than the other person. So, and I think what goes along with that is you're like the pride. He had to put his pride aside. Like this guy is a very prideful human being, and I think we were watching in real time, not so much the fight itself, but just the whole journey of him getting to a point where he wasn't the same Russell Westbrook that he was when he was with OKC, realizing he wasn't even the same guy that he was with the Rockets, then realizing that he's gotten to a point where his best attribute for a team with his ability is not at the starting point guard position.
Yeah.
And when you really think about that from what he's what I'm saying, like the heights of superstardom he was at to where he is, you're like that's I won't even call it a fall. That's a transition. That's a transition that some people, you know what I'm saying, that some people can't make. It took Melo to get kicked out the league to make that transition. You know what I'm saying? So like I just think that we're watching that. I think that he had to go through some stuff emotionally, probably. I don't think he'll talk about a whole lot of that, but shoot, you know what I'm saying? I applaud it. You know what I'm talking about? Flex bomb for Russ coming off the bench, and I'm getting dubs.
What, before we move on, let me ask you guys both this question. Do you think there's certain athletes in all sports that can fill the box score almost at will, but just for whatever reason, they don't have that championship caliber, that championship DNA, and unless they're in like a golden opportunity surrounded by people that do have that championship pedigree, and even then, in the case of like Russell Westbrook, it's not doesn't seem to be like everywhere he goes, it just doesn't click. But he fills that box score up, and there's been guys like that in
Can I,
football and in other sports. So
can
what do you
I?
guys think?
I think I haven't figured out. Sterling's like, come the fuck on, Russ. I think I have it figured out. You know
Let's
what I'm
hear it.
saying?
I
Me,
would love to hear it.
me, me, and my super brain. No, but I think it goes along with. I don't think it's like championship. It may be DNA. It's the willingness to do what is needed to win, regardless of how it makes you look. All these guys can fill up the stats. If we were to go ask Steph Curry to go shoot 25 threes a night, 30 threes a night, and do nothing else but try to give us entertainment, he would break. He already broke the record, but he would break even more, set himself even further. He would look even more amazing. If you were to ask LeBron James back in Miami, don't play the defense that you played in Miami, just keep playing the offense like you did in Cleveland, and just be that monster. Like that, all of it's the same to me. Like you have to be willing to sacrifice that. Some players are never on a team that's good enough. That happens. But some guys can't sacrifice being number one. Sir Charles Barkley. Some guys cannot sacrifice that. You know what I'm saying? They don't want to sacrifice that. They will not sacrifice that until they are no longer able to be number one. And sometimes they realize it in time, and sometimes they do. I love Carmelo Anthony. He's a number one. Another
Yeah,
one.
yeah.
Like Carmelo Anthony had a chance to play with Derrick Rose and chose to take a bag from New York. When we knew, even if that team added Tyson Chandler and Chauncey Billups and some of the other pieces, y'all weren't going to be able to compete with the Heat. But we knew if you gave Derrick Rose or Carmelo Anthony in his prime, that y'all would compete with the Heat. But he chose to go to the place that would highlight him. And I think that's more or less like goes into what do you want out of your career. And I don't really fault them for that. Like as a fan, you get into arguments. I always look up and be like, damn, I can never say like a lot of my players, like Tracy McGrady, one of my guys. Carmelo, one of my guys. You know what I'm saying? I fucks with Russell Westbrook. You know what I'm saying? But like they don't have championships, and I don't think it's a like a negative on them, but I do think it's a thought process that some players do not have. And when you can put some players in a position to where they don't have to change their thought process as far as how they play on the court, which is what the Lakers were trying to do with Russell Westbrook the entire time by telling him come off the bench, because they were trying to let him know you'll be able to play the way you want to in this role, and that'll make you play better. But his mindset is, but I won't be Russell Westbrook, the last person called in the starting lineup when you start to call our names. I won't be the one in lights. And people are like, you're selfish, but it's more or less like
Ego.
it's ego, but it's more or less, but it's also like, what do you want? What you playing for? Like not necessarily ego, but like what's fun to you. You know what I'm saying? Like some people like to play Madden on arcade mode, not because they suck at the game. That's what's fun to
People
them.
are psychos. Sterling,
But
Playing
no,
Madden in
yeah,
general it makes you a crazy person. But I think
it's
it's
stressful.
identity. It's identity meets legacy, right? Some of these guys, like Kevin Garnett, was one of those guys that had that championship DNA caliber, whereas Dan Marino, in my opinion, wasn't cut that way. I just don't think he was. James Harden is another guy.
Can I ask you a question though?
Yeah.
Because I get what you're saying, but I'm saying now, and this is where I come into the mindset part. Do you believe that if Dan Marino were to allow his team to switch up his offense to a more run-based offense and just let him make all the throws, they would have won? Because I think he would have.
I don't think so.
Like let's say this: if you switch,
they had talent. Talent was never the question.
But I'm saying this: like switch Troikman and Dan Marino, because Troikman just made all the throws when they needed him to, but we didn't ask him to do shit else. It was Troy, make these slants to Irvin. You might go deep every once in a while down the field, but you're gonna turn around and hand this bitch off. You know what I'm saying? Don't throw no picks. If you put Dan Marino in that style of offense, or that style of offense, I think he wins multiple Super Bowls too. But I think what goes into it, what makes them not cut for a championship, is their unwillingness to be able to say, like, I'm gonna give some of this up. Like Peyton Manning, go ahead. But yeah, go ahead. My bad. Go ahead.
I think, we got to get back into basketball here on this. We got the wrong background up, but I think Dan Marino is a glorified Jeff George.
I'm not even going to get into that because I think that's sacrilegious. Y'all disrespecting my boy Dan.
I'm not saying Dan Marino wasn't good. I'm just saying, like, when you
I'm not saying Jeff George wasn't good.
True champions, I just don't feel like, I just don't feel like Dan had it.
I just think some guys. I'm not going to get into the Dan Marino thing.
We could debate that. We could get in there at some point. Maybe not tonight.
I need to do some research because there might be some things about Dan. Y'all are Bills fans. Y'all are Bills fans.
If it comes out of my mouth, he gonna want to debate it.
Y'all are Bills fans, so y'all got the inside scoop. Y'all got the inside scoop on the Dolphins. That's like trying to talk to me about that team in Washington whose owners got to sell it. But back to basketball because they're trash. But back to basketball. I think that sometimes you just have those guys that are willing to just sacrifice even their own role. And I don't want to get into Michael Jordan because he was a different.
Yeah.
It was a different. That whole
Because he said
situation was
every
different.
subject.
Well, no, not even the. No, I can get into some other things, but no, I'm just saying like how the whole story of Michael Jordan was developed, and that's what makes it so amazing and so great. But like he was a guy that was afforded the opportunity to do it alone and couldn't,
And
but
that and
he
they had to go
found,
get
but
reinforcements.
but he was able, like LeBron, to still be the spotlight. You know what I'm
Right,
saying? So like
right.
they have the uncanny ability to do both. You know what I'm saying? That's what makes those guys really special. They
I,
have the ability to be the guy in the spotlight while being the guy that wants to have everything for themselves.
you remember when
Tom
LeBron?
Brady's another one.
You remember when LeBron played the San Antonio Spurs, and he was such a slasher.
When they
It's
won or
all
when they lost?
when they lost. He was such a slasher.
The second in Miami
No, no,
or
no.
no
When he was
Cleveland?
with the Cleveland,
Oh yeah, yeah,
and,
yeah.
and the whole thing was LeBron has no game in the post.
Mm-hmm.
Like people like that. That's where the identity comes in. Like people like that learn to transcend or change their how they do things to make themselves more effective, whether that's from a leadership standpoint, whether that's
Yes.
stylistically. Jordan, LeBron,
Ron,
Kobe,
Kobe.
Shaq, even.
Here's another
Shaq
one
had the
from far distance. That's not so Dirk Nowitzki.
absolutely. So you have to be able to evolve with what's at hand, the leadership to the on field on court play. You got to be able to mold and change. I think that's what elevates you, makes you
And
great.
and I'm not gonna sit out here and let these people bitch up in the playoffs and nut up in the playoffs. Now there is something
Yeah.
that comes with taking a deep breath and saying, I gotta do this shit. Like there's a
Mhm.
reason why we look at what LeBron did in game 7 in Golden State. No matter what you think of him, you look at that game and you say, like, bro, you did what? Like, you did what? You know what I'm saying? There's something to that. You know what I'm saying? There's something to Michael Jordan going to the Garden when you're allowed to slap a person in midair and fight. You know what I'm saying? And get it done. There's something to all that shit. There's something to what Kobe was doing when Shaq fouled out, hit them shots and let everybody know we're gonna be okay because
Right.
I got that shit. So there is still something to that, but I think more so. I think there's a lot of guys that can make those type of plays and make those type of moments, but I think there's something special inside of a guy that says, "I'm gonna kick that bitch to Robert Orr. I'm gonna give it to Ron Artest, or I'm gonna throw the oop to Shaq, or I'm gonna let Scottie Pippen do his thing for about 5 minutes." I think there's something that goes into that, and coaching matters too, which we'll
For
get into
sure.
later. But
For
yeah,
sure.